Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're kicking off a set of videos covering the various factions that'll be available to play when Age of Empires 4 launches. I was fortunate enough to get an early access key thanks to the developers, and I've been able to spend some time familiarizing myself with the game, and though I think it's premature to go around defining the meta before the game's even out and in everyone's hands, there are some elements that make each faction unique, and I thought we'd take a look at what they mean and how they can best be used. You can expect more of these alongside additional Age of Empires content on the channel, so if you enjoy the video, don't hesitate to subscribe when it's done, or to join our Discord linked in the description down below, because there's a lot more coming. With no more time to waste, let's kick things off with the first of our factions, the Delhi Sultanate. Infantry Defenders. While the iconic Delhi Sultanate units are the two War Elephant variants that become available further down the line, don't underestimate the value of their infantry over that of their foreign counterparts. While you might not jump at the opportunity right away, you should keep in mind that when it comes time to build defensive structures, your infantry are able to do so at the same cost as your villagers. Whether it's your melee infantry or ranged infantry, you can get them working on wooden palisades and gates, and the cost of construction, as well as the time taken, is exactly the same. The benefit then is that you don't have to pull villagers away from something only villagers can do, and you're also able to build said defensive structures in more precarious locations without having to send villagers alongside military units to protect them. Unfortunately, building outposts still requires villagers, so while you can build palisades to slow down an enemy approach or otherwise block them off, you won't be able to build a fully defensible position with just your infantry until you reach the Castle Age, and even then, you'll have to pick the compound of the Defender landmark building when entering the new age in order to do so. The decision will give your infantry access to stone walls, stone wall gates, and stone wall towers, which means that you can build not only more durable defensive structures, but you can also take advantage of the high ground the walls would provide and the added defensive capabilities of the stone wall tower. Don't forget this crucial time and resource-saving option when playing as the Delhi Sultanate. Keeping your villagers working on whatever resource they're collecting while your soldiers travel off to build these defensive structures can make a significant difference in early game map control, allowing you to block off relics and sacred sites, or even just hold off early aggression and scouting. Always research. As the Delhi Sultanate, you need to make sure you are doing research across all your buildings as often as possible. Not only are you able to pause and resume research, but there's absolutely no cost to any of the tech whatsoever. This means, for example, that as soon as you've established your first mill and your first lumber camp, you should get them researching tech right away if possible, and as soon as you enter the second age, you should get your mining camp researching too. Outside of waiting for the right age for certain options, you should be able to get yourself some decent economic advantages early on if you unlock some of these early upgrades. This also means that you can be less hesitant about investing in a blacksmith sooner rather than later. All of the tech available at a blacksmith is completely free, meaning you can upgrade weapons and armor as you see fit, and you can gain access to siege equipment sooner than your enemies too. A +1 to damage output or armor might not seem like much, but it can get you an early upper hand during initial skirmishes or for any harassment that you might do or defend from, and further down the line as well, as your enemies get their upgrades in, you should be able to stay one step ahead of them. The unique Delhi Sultanate Forced March tech is also available at the blacksmith, allowing your units to double their speeds temporarily, though it prevents them from attacking during that time. By the time you get to choosing your 4th age landmark, you might want to consider the Hisar Academy depending on your current situation. This building will generate a constant supply of food based on the number of technologies you've researched, so you can adjust your population focus later in the game if you've managed to stack a lot of tech by the late game. The ability to research for free opens up a lot of options, and the fact that you can pause and resume as needed means that even your unit production buildings can be set to research when you're not in immediate need of new units, and you don't have to worry about losing progress if you need to cancel research to recruit units in an emergency. So yes, as the Delhi Sultanate, you need to make sure you're pretty much always doing research. As I've been talking about getting the upper hand through research though, you might have noticed some insane research times needed. What would take most factions a minute and a bit to research takes 5 minutes or so for the Delhi Sultanate, and while that does seem to dull the advantage a bit, this is where we can talk about mosques and scholars. While most factions need to wait until the Third Age to build their religious buildings and acquire the associated units and benefits, the Delhi Sultanate is able to do so with the mosque right from the First Age. Not only are they able to do so, but it's pretty much a necessity. As I mentioned earlier, while researching technology is free when playing as the Delhi Sultanate, it takes a significantly longer time to research any one technology when compared to other factions. To counter that, you need to build mosques and fill them with scholars. Make sure that the mosque area of influence makes contact with all your buildings that will be performing any sort of research. And remember, it doesn't need to be a direct adjacency. Your buildings just all need to have their areas of influence touch each other, and as long as any one of those buildings is within the area of influence of the mosque, they'll all get the benefits from the mosque. You can clearly tell if a building will get these benefits when the area of influence around the building will get a golden highlight to let you know that it's being affected. The first mosque you establish will come with a scholar already inside, but it can hold up to 3. For each scholar in a mosque, you'll see a 12.5% increase to research rate at all buildings within the aforementioned area of influence. As you might expect, these benefits stack. So if you have 2 mosques, you can have up to 6 scholars. If you have 3 mosques, you can have up to 9 scholars, so on and so forth. And as long as each of these mosques shares its area of influence with research-performing buildings as described earlier, said buildings will see the benefit for all 9 or however many mosques and scholars you have. Since this benefit is percentage-based, technologies that have a longer base completion time will benefit with the largest numerical reduction in time taken, but keep in mind that you will have diminishing returns as you add more scholars into the mix. For example, where the first scholar might shave 55 or so seconds off the time needed to research an upgrade, the second scholar will only shave off 43, the third 35, so on and so forth. It takes 3 mosques filled with 3 scholars each to match the research speed of rival factions on average. That's 300 wood and 1,350 gold, but then you never have to spend gold again for tech. If you're going to consider taking this route, I would highly recommend the Dome of the Faith as your Age 2 landmark pick. It allows you to recruit scholars at half the cost, meaning that 1,350 gold price tag for 9 scholars becomes 675 gold instead, with each scholar costing 75 gold instead of 150. And that seems far more reasonable, doesn't it? And the price reduction seems extra compelling when you consider that you'll want scholars for more than just teching up too. Scholars, like other religious units, can heal your units, but beyond that, the 4th Age Zeal tech allows them to buff attack stats at the same time. Scholars are also able to capture sacred sites before any other faction can with the Sanctity tech, and with the Efficient Production tech, scholars can garrison in any military recruitment building to double their production speeds. This benefit applies per recruitment building separately, so if you have, say, multiple barracks, only the ones with scholars in them will gain the benefit, so you might want to get a scholar in each. You can only garrison 1 scholar in a building though. You can't just throw 20 scholars into a single barracks and expect soldiers to pop out every other second. But a 50% reduction in recruitment time means you can bring reinforcements out faster, whether those reinforcements come in the form of foot soldiers or war elephants. On which note, war elephants are amazing. This entire section could just be that title card, honestly. War elephants are truly quite amazing. The melee variant can be recruited from the stable in the 3rd Age onwards, where you can eventually also research a +2 armor buff, and the ranged variant is available at the archery range from the 3rd Age onwards as well, with the option there to upgrade the riders into elite crossbowmen rather than archers, presumably for more damage and an armor-piercing focus. It takes a minute to recruit either war elephant type without a scholar, and only 30 seconds with a scholar, and eventually, come the 4th Age, you can get the Palace of the Sultan landmark to freely recruit a tower war elephant automatically with room for 4 scholars to help cut that production time down significantly. The melee variant has significantly more health and better melee armor than ranged, and when attacking, it uses the elephant's tusks as well as the rider's spears, with the spears giving bonus against cavalry. And though the attack speed is a little on the slow side, the survivability here is really through the roof, especially if you have scholars nearby healing the war elephant. The tower war elephants have much less health, but still a significant amount. It's more than some of the smaller buildings that you'll be building. And they're also able to stand and fight in melee if need be, thanks to the aforementioned tusks. While they don't have a bonus against cavalry, they're not as susceptible to a charge as regular archers and crossbows on foot, and when push comes to shove, war elephants of either kind can attack buildings with great efficiency. Where you'd normally be scared of an outpost or town center quickly obliterating some of your units, a war elephant can eat quite a few shots before it needs to be pulled back. And if they're ever too hurt, you just heal them with all those scholars you've got back home and send them back out again. You want to make sure your war elephants don't get focused down on the way over to the enemy. As you can imagine, it's not like you can just parade a bunch of elephants straight into your opponent's town center. But with enough war elephants and supporting units charging in on foot or in battering rams, you can certainly throw an opponent off and take the day. Very good value. The Delhi Sultanate, much like the Abbasid dynasty, are able to gain extra benefits from berry bushes. Though the game states you can gather berries 25% faster, I didn't see much of a difference in the time it took to gather 10 food from berry bushes as the Delhi Sultanate versus any other faction, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. It also took the same amount of time to gather food from any other source as well, so maybe a 25% difference is super slim, maybe my reaction time on my stopwatch was way off, or maybe the pre-release build wasn't applying this modifier correctly, but either way, I wasn't able to see any discernible advantage with regards to harvest times. The second half of the game's claim, though, is true. You cannot harvest meat from boar when playing as the Delhi Sultanate. This is a reference to the Muslim leaning of the faction and how boar and pig would be considered haram. An interesting touch, though, but all it does is limit your options for hunting by the slimmest of margins. The biggest impact related to berries has to be with building a mill next to berry bushes. Any that fall within a small radius around the mill will provide twice as much food, lasting for significantly longer and allowing you to save up on the wood you'd otherwise need to spend on establishing farms. If there are lots of plentiful berry bushes on the map, you can pursue them further and further away from the safety of your base if you so wish, since a mill only costs 50 wood and farms cost 75 each. That saved wood can be used for any number of things, but don't forget to eventually build farms too. It's not like berry bushes will last forever, and the further you get from your base, the more likely it is that your opponent will attack undefended villagers. You don't want to be caught without any stable source of food, so don't take this to mean that you can just ignore farms entirely. I just mean that you can wait a little bit longer before you need to invest in them. There you have it, a quick rundown of what makes the Delhi Sultanate a unique faction and the things I think you need to keep in mind when you play as them. I hope you found this helpful whether you're already familiar with the faction or not, and if you have any tips of your own based on your own experience that you'd like to share down below, I'd love to see them. Let me know if you'd like more of this kind of coverage as well by leaving a like down below, and if you're looking for a community to play Age of Empires 4 with, don't hesitate to join our Discord, linked in the description down below as well. And on the topic of things not to hesitate about, don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel if you'd like more strategy gaming previews, reviews, let's plays, guides, and more. And as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.